out there. Many of the followers of the factual feminist are college age or younger, and they may have been in schools, universities where conservatism was denigrated or simply not represented. So how do you define conservatism, and what are its virtues?
Well, this has been my life's work to define conservatism. At a certain stage, I realized that I was a conservative without knowing quite what it was. Let's say in May 1968 in Paris, when I saw all the students protesting on behalf of essentially nothing, not knowing what they wanted, knowing only what they were against, I felt this is outrageous, that they should be listened to. If people's feelings are purely negative, defining themselves in terms of what they dislike or even hate, then they're under an obligation to find something that they love. So I looked around myself for the things that I love, and I decided that they are the things that I already have. Our civilization, the rule of law, the ability to close a door and be secure behind it. All those
that we take for granted.
We take for granted
the benefits of civilization.
Exactly, but they were threatened then by these crazy students who had had all these benefits.
Yes, it was very much an upper middle class uprising.
Yes, exactly. Well, I observed it from my mansard in the street below in Paris, and it was a revolution supposedly against the bourgeoisie on behalf of the working class. I looked down in the street for representatives of the working class. The only ones I could see were those poor policemen whom they were throwing stones at.
Exactly, and we've seen this now on some of our college campuses.
Exactly. So my thought, anyway, over the many years that I've looked into this question, my thought is that the essential feature of conservatism is love of the actual, love of the things that you've inherited, and a desire to reassert that inheritance, not uncritically, but in the way that you do with your family, your parents, your brothers and sisters. You know their faults, but you love them. They are part of you, and it's your primary duty to affirm that love, and then work for any improvements, of course.
Now, when you say improvements, I can imagine someone from the left responding that, what are you talking about? Conserving? What if what you are conserving is corrupt, full of injustice? Institutions where women were second-class citizens and so forth. What do you say?
Everything is imperfect, but the question is, what parts of what you've inherited can be improved and amended? What parts must be thrown away? But what parts are necessary if you're to do any improving at all? Edmund Burke said, we reform in order to conserve. If we don't do it that way, then we risk losing the whole motive for reforming in the first place, because we throw away our identity as social beings.
And it's much easier to tear something apart than to
yeah.
build it. And so heedlessly, we've seen denegrations of beauty in contemporary life, in education, where young people aren't introduced to great works of the past, or even something like the beauty of the common law.
Yes.
There's not an understanding of where our laws come from. I see students today that suddenly want to dispense with due process or have, they would like to change the First Amendment. No understanding of how these came into being.
No, that's right. Well, I think this is where one has to steer a middle course between saying, look, this is our inheritance, accept it, or saying, get rid of all that and let's start again. All attempts to get rid of everything and start again, like the French Revolution or the Russian Revolution or the Nazi Revolution, end up as genocide. Because the controls that prevent people from exercising their basic resentment and anger are taken away. So you have to begin from the point that we've inherited something that defines what we are. Let's see now whether we want to improve it in this or that respect, and which parts of it are absolutely fundamental to our being what we are. And you mentioned the common law, which of course is part of the shared inheritance of my country and yours, which most young people don't fully understand. They don't see the amazing achievement of a legal system that has grown out of the resolution of individual conflicts and then the extraction of principles from that, so that it's sensitive at every point to the actuality of human beings.
And developed organically from
Exactly.
the ground up rather
Yeah.
than from on high.
Yeah, imposed. See, but it's a natural instinct in intellectuals, and the reason why intellectuals are so dangerous is to impose things from on high. To say, look, we understand everything. We got the answer to the human problem. Here are the principles. Those are going to be accepted, and we'll deduce from that the application in the individual case. And that's the opposite of how human conflicts are resolved. The principles are deduced from the particular case and not the other way around.
Not the other way around. And you have seen this, for example, in the area of art and art history, how there was a tradition of beauty and works of genius, and younger people were taught to appreciate and younger artists to emulate. And then suddenly there were, well, it wasn't sudden, but there was a gradual move in modernity and then post-modernity, and something was lost. And you've talked about this in...
Yeah, this is something that has troubled me, because I've always been interested in the arts. And for me, when I was growing up, I was, like many of my generation, I was looking for something that would represent the civilization that had almost destroyed itself in the Second World War. You know, what was so great? What is the symbol of that I would really want to hold on to? Of course, art, music, and literature became symbols for me. And then I was faced, as all my generation were faced, with the strange puzzle that at a certain stage artists themselves seem to be turning against their vocation. The vocation of art, as I see it, is to produce beautiful things through the beauty of which we understand our own predicament. You know, the human condition, as we know, is full of woes, full of tragedy, and full of
mystery.
And one of the tasks of art is to reconcile us to this, to show that in the very depths of despair there is beauty which redeems us. And all the great art of the past, you know, right up to Van Gogh and Cézanne and so on, was devoted to this transcendental goal. Suddenly there was a kind of culture of repudiation that came about, that we don't want this, we can't do it, therefore we're going to condemn it. And you get art like de Kooning and people like that, which became very fashionable in America, devoted to the goal of desecrating the human condition rather than redeeming it. And I think that was, you know, a religious person would say that was the devil's work, but I don't want to put it quite in that way. But there is something in us which wants to destroy, as well as the other thing that wants to affirm. And art is particularly vulnerable to this, because, you know, let's face it, at a certain stage in our civilization, the artist became a kind of hero. He was adulated, he was made into the representative of the human spirit for our times. And to get that status became, you know, an object of great desire.
Coveted.
Yeah, people coveted the status of artist, and so any way of getting attention at a certain stage seemed good. So you got all that pop art stuff, or worse, you know, like Tracy Emin putting on display her disordered bed, in
frightening.
which yes, in which all the mess of her daily life is made into a spectacle, and the people will queue to see that spectacle, just as they used to queue to look at crucifixions. But it doesn't follow that the thing is beautiful, and it doesn't follow that they'll go away from this improved or in any way made to reflect on their own condition and be reconciled to it.
vote for me because I'm a woman. One of my merits is I'm a woman. All these mothers vote for me because I'm a woman. Because I'm a woman. Vote for me because I'm a woman. One of my merits is I'm a woman. All these mothers vote for me because I'm a woman. Because I'm a woman.
Hillary Clinton just loves women so much.
Women, women, woman, woman, women, woman, women, 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 woman, woman, women, 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 woman, women,
There's never been a more strident feminist. There's never been a more ardent defender of women's rights. Really? Is that why Hillary Clinton defended a rapist who molested a 12-year-old girl and then laughed about helping him get away with it? Oh, you didn't hear about that? Maybe it was because the mainstream media was too busy telling you about how Donald Trump allegedly called a woman fat 20 years ago. Kathy Shelton was brutally beaten and raped on the side of a desolate Arkansas road by 41-year-old Thomas Alfred Taylor.
It's sad that a 12-year-old had to go through what I had to go through. Because for days I cried and cried and cried over it. Sometimes I'll still break down and cry.
The young lawyer called upon to defend Taylor, Hillary Clinton. Clinton, who said that all rape victims should be believed, set out to destroy Kathy Shelton's credibility by smearing her. Hillary claimed the victim was emotionally unstable, had fantasized about having sex with older men, and had romanticized the experience. It was such a romantic experience for Kathy Shelton that she spent 5 days in a coma and 10 years in therapy after the incident. Hillary Clinton, the so-called women's rights champion, blamed the rape victim.
There's never been any evidence presented by anyone to substantiate the allegations that Hillary Clinton made in that affidavit. To the victim, this was an attempt by Hillary Clinton to smear her in order to exonerate her attacker. The victim believes that Hillary Clinton lied in order to win.
But get this, the crime lab cut out a part of the victim's underwear to test it and found Taylor's semen mixed in with Kathy Shelton's blood. Case closed, right? Wrong. Hillary Clinton takes the rest of the underwear, absent the part that's already been cut out and tested, on a 1,200-mile journey to New York and has the other part of it tested. The part that Clinton took tests negative, and the other part that contained the blood and semen is mysteriously lost. And I'm sure that had nothing whatsoever to do with the fact that the judge in the case was a Clinton campaign donor. The prosecution then had to pursue lesser charges, and thanks to Hillary Clinton, the rapist only served 2 months in jail when he should have been locked up for life.
How did it turn out?
Oh, he plea bargained. He got him off. It was time served in the county jail. He's been in the county jail about 2 months.
But then in 2014, a tape emerges where Hillary is heard laughing about the moment when she presented her forensic evidence.
I handed it to Bailey Gibson. I said, well, this guy's ready to come from New York to prevent this miscarriage of justice.
And that's not all.
Clinton on the same tape laughing about her client passing a polygraph.
He took a lie detector test. I had to take a polygraph, which he passed, which forever destroyed my faith in polygraphs. But you know what was sad about it was that the prosecutors had evidence.
Think about what you just heard. Clinton says him passing a polygraph test made her lose faith in polygraph tests, meaning she knew that he had committed the rape and lied about it, yet she still defended him anyway. Hillary knew he was guilty and laughed about it. She laughed about helping a child molester who brutally raped a 12-year-old girl get away with it. What kind of monster does that?
You cannot at once smear a rape victim and then turn around and claim to be a defender or a role model for women.
Remember, the media is whipping up hysteria over an allegation that Trump called someone fat 20 years ago. He's the one being demonized as a misogynistic woman hater, while Hillary gets a free pass. Trump may have made some mean comments about women, while Hillary provably ruined a woman's life by helping her rapist go free. Think about that.
When I come out of a coma, I had several stitches down there, and because they tore me up bad. And the doctor said it's a 99% chance that I can't have kids. When I was younger, I really wanted a kid so bad. I love kids, but I never had any kids.
If this was a standalone issue, it would be bad enough. But Hillary Clinton has a history of being a rape enabler for her husband, of intimidating and silencing female rape victims. A history of maliciously targeting Bill Clinton's lovers. She vowed to crucify and destroy Jennifer Flowers, just like she smeared Kathy Shelton. A 12-year-old rape victim, Hillary Clinton has spent most of her political life decimating the lives of women. She also takes hundreds of millions of dollars from Saudi Arabia and other countries that oppress women. Is this the behaviour of someone who cares about women's rights?
You lied on me, and you're supposed to be it for women? Do you call that for women? What you done to me? And I heard you on tape laughing.
Hillary Clinton is a terrible feminist. She tramples on women any chance she gets to further her political agenda. Mark my words, this story will not be allowed to die. The mainstream media will be forced to cover this very soon. This is Hillary Clinton's real record on women's rights. Will the rest of America see the real Hillary before it's too late?
Doctor, does it matter that much whether you put the word Christian in the attack or not?
Yes, it matters tremendously. You know, that's the same pattern that was exhibited with some of the Christian attacks in the other parts of the Middle East. You know, this is craziness that we simply refuse to acknowledge it and allow it to continue to grow. And, you know, I can't really explain why our administration goes out of its way not to include the fact that Christians are being persecuted. But, of course, this has implications for our country, too, in the future.
Hillary Clinton's campaign manager, John Podesta, attends weird occult dinner parties where blood, semen and breast milk are used in ritualistic ceremonies. No, this isn't a fake news story, it's absolutely real. And there you were thinking Podesta's UFO obsession was his weirdest hobby. In an email dated June 28, 2015, performance artist Maria Abramovich wrote to Podesta's brother Tony and said, "I'm so looking forward to the spirit cooking dinner at my place. Do you think you will be able to let me know if your brother is joining?" Tony Podesta then forwarded the email to John Podesta, asking him, "Are you in NYC Thursday, July the 9th? Marina wants you to come to dinner." Here's Marina inviting Podesta directly. So what is spirit cooking? It's basically a Wiccan ceremony where blood is used to create some form of art as a sacrament to occult beliefs. This video shows Abramovich mixing together thickly congealed blood as the recipe for the painting, which is comprised of the words, "With a sharp knife cut deeply into the middle finger of your left hand, eat the pain." Spirit cooking is also an occult practice used during sex cult rituals, as explained in the book Spirit Cooking with Essential Aphrodisiac Recipes. According to Maria Abramovich, if the ritual is performed in an art gallery, it's merely art. But if the ritual is performed privately, as it was with the Podestas, then it represents an intimate spiritual ceremony. Here's Abramovich posing with a goat's head dripping in blood, a representation of the occult symbol Baphomet, which is used by numerous secret societies like Freemasonry and the Knights Templar. Here she is at a spirit cooking event with Lady Gaga, eating something with a spoon that's smeared all over the body of a mock corpse. Here she is with a pentagram carved into her stomach. But townhall.com says that all this is perfectly normal and we just all need to calm down. So how is Hillary tied to all this insane weirdness? Well, for one, Podesta is her campaign chairman and they move in the same circles. Maria Abramovich was invited to Hillary's campaign launch, and Hillary herself is also known to be into bizarre paranormal practices. Clinton used to hold seances in the White House to try and contact dead people like Eleanor Roosevelt and Mahatma Gandhi. Bill Clinton's book also talks about how him and Hillary used to participate in voodoo rituals in Haiti. Hillary's mentor is Saul Alinsky, who in his book Rules for Radicals praises Lucifer. Should it really surprise us that FBI agents refer to Hillary Clinton as the Antichrist? How did the Clinton campaign respond to the spirit cooking scandal? They blamed Vladimir Putin. Yes, they actually blamed Vladimir Putin. And if you thought that was weird enough, I haven't even talked about the accusations of child trafficking and pedophilia, which some claim is coded into the Podesta emails under the guise of types of food. This is some serious Bohemian Grove, eyes wide shut, satanic style malarkey. Would you really want these kind of people in control of the nuclear codes? So John Podesta, Hillary's top guy, likes to engage in occult rituals involving pig's blood, semen, and urine, while Donald Trump likes to eat ice cream. But according to the media, who have refused to cover this story, Donald Trump is the weird, creepy, dangerous one. So Trump talked about pussy 10 years ago, and that was a national scandal. Clinton campaign insiders involved in satanic rituals as of last year. Meh, who cares?
Os canais de direita estão ameaçados. Nós temos dois inquéritos hoje no Brasil que estão atacando muito, né, a nossa liberdade. Um é o inquérito ilegal que agora se tornou legal com a anuência, né, do advogado-geral da União do Bolsonaro, o Levi, e o PGR Augusto Aras, que votaram a favor, né, desse absurdo que nasceu cheio de vícios ali na origem e acabaram legitimando esse inquérito, que servirá, inclusive, né, a Tef Ferrari hoje publicou uma informação de bastidores que ela tem informação de que haverá 2 operações da Polícia Federal contra comunicadores de direita e também terá uma outra ação, né, no âmbito desse outro inquérito, que é o inquérito das manifestações antidemocráticas, que será direcionada a assessores de deputados. Então vejam, tem 2 frentes. O inimigo, né, o inimigo da liberdade, como eu prefiro colocar, está avançando muito rápido. A liberdade do Brasil, sim, está ameaçada, e nossas liberdades individuais, inclusive, né, nosso próprio direito de ir e vir, já fizeram esse experimento social com os ditadores aí dos governos do Estado, né, que funcionou muito bem. Ficamos e estamos ainda restritos aí em muitos locais do Brasil, e agora nós estamos vendo aí, inclusive, vários militantes, ativistas presos, né? Tem não só a Sarah Winter, como mais 5 que foram presos com ela. Tem aqueles 2 que foram presos por protestar na frente da casa do Alexandre de Moraes, que estão num presídio lá numa ala do PCC. Então, esses aí estão presos há mais tempo ainda, já mais de um mês, na cadeia, por protestar contra Alexandre de Moraes. Prisão preventiva, prisão da Sarah Winter, enfim. As pessoas estão sendo presas, né? E vimos a operação policial aí no QG da Sarah Winter, onde não acharam nada demais ali, cartazes, bandeiras de apoio ao presidente, fogos de artifício, nada, nenhuma arma. Acharam uma faca cortada pela metade, a faca nem funcional aparentava estar, né? Então nem sequer facas decentes ali acharam no local. Enfim, tudo isso para legitimar uma narrativa que vai sim culminar aí, né, com toda uma ação orquestrada para culminar, sim, no silêncio, no desmantelamento da direita brasileira, né? Afinal, se esses canais hoje existem e têm vozes, né, tudo aí começou com o professor Olavo de Carvalho, né, e muitos outros intelectuais surgiram, e posteriormente aos intelectuais surgiram os comunicadores, né, que aí a minha função aqui não é levar conteúdo filosófico aprofundado, e aí para isso a gente oferece os cursos aí para vocês se aprofundarem. Tem vários nomes bons aí na direita que fazem isso, mas a ideia aqui é levar a notícia para vocês sem, né, esse viés esquerdista que tem sido um monopólio por muito tempo dentro da mídia brasileira.
Time for final thoughts. Folks, we knew this was coming. It's been brewing for years, but now it's been set back by Donald Trump. But it's going to come harder than ever. It's the hard left, and it's orchestrated by this guy. That's George Soros, a liberal mega donor and the leader of the so-called Democracy Alliance. This man is the pulse of the hard left, a wealthy instigator, to put it mildly, and he's on a mission, along with the rest of his hard left cult, to destroy Donald Trump. But not just Donald Trump, the silent majority that voted for him. Soros is on the warpath, and it's about to get ugly. These spontaneous protests around the country are just the beginning. And why do you think that is? Because nothing scares rats like Soros more than American patriotism. Nothing intimidates the left more than the silent majority getting a little louder. Nothing threatens their bottom feeder existence more than Trump's promise to drain the swamp. Don't you get it? These kinds of people live off division. That's why people like Soros have been reaching into their deep pockets to fund the Black Lives Matter More movement. Over 33 million pumped in, and for what? To loot, to riot, to burn, to turn the country into chaos? Guess who benefits from chaos, from uprisings? People like Soros, the hard left. Meanwhile, they feed the beast. Tell someone they're the victim enough times and they not only start to believe it, they want revenge. Have you seen the streets? After Ferguson, Baltimore, Baton Rouge, St. Paul, Tulsa, Dallas, and now the anti-Trump protesters bust in to protest a free and fair election. Does that seem normal to you? It's not, but it's all part of the plan. Everyone is freaking out over Steve Bannon. Meanwhile, Soros is meeting with liberal donors and Democrats behind closed doors in a fancy hotel to discuss how they will stop Trump. Wake up! The storm is brewing. We won the election, but we've pissed them off more than ever. When they see their power being ripped away from their dirty little hands, they will come after this country harder than ever before. And where the hell are the so-called leaders in all of this? Hillary, Bernie, Lizzie Warren, where are you? Crawl out of your holes and denounce this crap. Show your supporters rallying in the streets against the police, fair elections, or any other BS is asinine. This isn't a redress of grievances. This is lawlessness and purely pathetic. These people are either paid or pawns for tyrants like Soros, and I feel sorry for them. Wake up. And Soros, good try, but there are too many good Americans out there ready to stop you. We are smarter, stronger, and love our country far too much to let you F with it anymore. Those are my final thoughts. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Tommy Lahren from Dallas. God bless, and take care. Welcome back for my final thoughts. Now, I realize that since this segment will go up on Facebook, I'm poking the bear here a little bit, but hey, that's what I do best. So here it is. I am really getting tired of Mark Zuckerberg, the ginger nerd, lecturing us on American politics, tolerance, and walls.
As I look around and as I travel around the world, I'm starting to see people and nations turning inward against this idea of a connected world and a global community. I hear fearful voices calling for building walls and distancing people they label as others, for blocking free expression, for slowing immigration, reducing trade, and in some cases around the world, even cutting access to the internet.
Let me say this again for all the self-righteous illegal alien cheerleaders out there. Whether it's a wall, more border agents, quicksand, or a moat, secure nations need secure borders. Hey, Marky Mark, do you lock the door to your mansion? Because that really is intolerant and unloving of you. You're really distancing people. How about we send all the unvetted Syrian refugees and illegal immigrants to your San Francisco compound? But until then, don't lecture the rest of us on security. Next, did you really just comment on free expression? You mean how Facebook conveniently deletes, flags, and censors posts and people you don't like? Like how Facebook permits anti-Israel postings but censors anti-Palestinian ones? Or how about the time you and German Chancellor Angela Merkel were caught on an open mic discussing how to suppress anti-migrant postings? Yeah, Facebook even launched an initiative for civil courage online. It aims to erase hate speech and racist posts. But that's funny. Who decides what's racist? Because there are quite a few racist comments posted on my wall, and yet they are still there. See, Mark, you are a walking contradiction in a bad hoodie. You're a genius, an entrepreneur. You've made billions off capitalism and the free marketplace. You are the 1%. You are privileged. You employ thousands of people, and good for you. Don't forget the country that allowed you to realize your dreams, and don't attack those that simply want to protect it with a damn wall. Those are my final thoughts. Feel free to disagree. I'll see you tomorrow night. God bless, and take care.
A Polícia Federal cumpriu mandados de busca e apreensão em 5 estados e no Distrito Federal, no inquérito que apura a organização e o financiamento de atos antidemocráticos. Segundo a Procuradoria-Geral da República, há indícios do envolvimento na realização das investigações, das manifestações que pediram medidas como o fechamento do Congresso Nacional e do Supremo Tribunal Federal. Essa operação de hoje foi autorizada pelo ministro do Supremo, Alexandre de Moraes, que é o relator do inquérito.
As buscas foram cumpridas em São Paulo, Minas Gerais, Rio de Janeiro, Maranhão, Santa Catarina e em Brasília. A Polícia Federal esteve em endereços do deputado bolsonarista Daniel Silveira, do PSL do Rio de Janeiro. Ele foi à Polícia Federal pela manhã. E os policiais também estiveram no gabinete dele, na Câmara.
Fui convidado a prestar depoimento, mas só vou prestar depois que eu tiver acesso aos autos. Eu não sei do que se trata, não tem como eu responder o que eu não sei, qual é o objeto.
O ministro Alexandre de Moraes, do Supremo Tribunal Federal, determinou a operação em inquérito aberto pelo STF a pedido da Procuradoria-Geral da República, que investiga envolvidos em atos antidemocráticos e seus financiadores. A Polícia Federal esteve em endereços de 21 suspeitos. Entre os 21 alvos da operação, além do deputado Daniel Silveira, estão Luiz Felipe Belmonte, empresário, advogado e um dos principais financiadores e organizadores do Aliança pelo Brasil, o partido que Bolsonaro pretende criar. Belmonte é o primeiro suplente do senador Exalci Lucas, do PSDB do Distrito Federal. Sérgio Lima, publicitário que atua junto com Bolsonaro na construção do partido Aliança pelo Brasil, ainda não formalizado. Segundo o jornal O Globo, ele foi o responsável pelo logotipo, pelo site e pelo aplicativo de coleta de assinaturas da legenda encabeçada pelo presidente. Alan dos Santos, blogueiro e apoiador de Bolsonaro. Alberto Silva, militante bolsonarista nas redes sociais. O youtuber bolsonarista que usa o perfil Ravox Brasil. Otávio Facuri, investidor do setor imobiliário, um dos fundadores do Partido Aliança. O empresário já admitiu publicamente ter financiado manifestações pró-Bolsonaro. Camila Abdo, militante bolsonarista nas redes e assessora parlamentar de um deputado estadual. Alvos da operação de hoje aparecem ao lado do presidente Jair Bolsonaro em postagens nas redes sociais. Segundo a Procuradoria-Geral da República, há indícios do envolvimento deles na realização de manifestações que pediram medidas como o fechamento do Congresso Nacional e do Supremo Tribunal Federal. Todos são suspeitos de participar de uma rede que usa a internet para disseminar mensagens inconstitucionais contra a democracia e pregando desobediência, além de estruturarem atos contra a ordem pública. Nas redes sociais, os investigados de hoje postam mensagens como estas. Em dezembro do ano passado, o deputado Daniel Silveira escreveu em uma rede social: "É só falar em AI-5 que inicia a choradeira, a gritaria e o frenesi." No dia 7 de junho, ele incitou a desobediência à decisão do ministro do Supremo, Edson Fachin, que proibiu operações policiais em favelas do Rio de Janeiro durante a pandemia. Ações policiais nas favelas proibidas por quem não pode proibir. Se fosse eu, comandante-geral, ignoraria. O governador vai cumprir. A história nos ensina o que a ausência do Estado fez nas favelas. O STF é o retrato do que existe de pior no Brasil. O youtuber Ravox Brasil escreveu no dia 17 de abril em uma rede social: "Intervenção militar. Nós seguramos a responsabilidade e o mundo não tem que falar nada." A sociedade clamou. E depois a nação coloca o presidente Bolsonaro para realmente governar. Em junho, escreveu: "Não pode ir à praia? Não pode abrir comércio? Não pode trabalhar? Vão mesmo permitir que safados corruptos ditem regras na sua vida? Para, né? Desobediência civil", e escreve um palavrão. Um dia após o ato antidemocrático que motivou a investigação, o blogueiro Alan dos Santos postou: "Se criminalizarem os intervencionistas, então não vejo outra saída, senão uma intervenção militar, pois estariam usando o Estado para impor a ideologia do discurso único." A Procuradoria-Geral da República pediu a operação para obter provas do financiamento e da organização desses atos antidemocráticos. A suspeita é que os investigados agiram com apoio e articulação de políticos. Os atos desrespeitam a Lei de Segurança Nacional. A ação foi batizada pela PF como Operação Lume, uma referência à necessidade de colocar luz sobre os investigados para revelar seus atos. Essa investigação sobre atos antidemocráticos foi aberta há quase 2 meses. após atos no dia 19 de abril que tinham manifestantes defensores do fechamento do Congresso, do STF e da reedição do AI-5, o ato institucional número 5, o mais duro ato da ditadura militar que fechou o Congresso, caçou políticos e suspendeu direitos, instituiu a censura de imprensa e gerou radicalização que levou à tortura e morte de presos políticos. A operação de hoje busca elementos de quem ordena, executa, coordena e financia os atos de manifestantes e apoiadores de Bolsonaro, que se enquadram em práticas tipificadas como crime pela Lei de Segurança Nacional.
O deputado federal Daniel Silveira afirmou em uma rede social que considera esse inquérito absurdo e recheado de inconstitucionalidades. Também pela internet, o blogueiro Alan dos Santos escreveu, abre aspas, estou apenas indignado por ver meus filhos e minha esposa passando por isso. Fecha aspas. Camila Abdo gravou um vídeo em que diz que não fez nada e que não cometeu nenhum crime. Alberto Silva afirmou que está tranquilo porque não tem nada a esconder do Supremo Tribunal Federal. O advogado do empresário Otávio Facuri negou que o cliente tenha praticado qualquer ato ilícito. Disse ainda que acompanhou os policiais, mas não teve acesso até agora aos autos e nem à decisão que embasou a busca e a apreensão de hoje. A gente não conseguiu contato com o empresário Luiz Felipe Belmonte, com o publicitário Sérgio Lima e com o youtuber Ravox Brasil. E também são alvos da operação de hoje Marcelo Frazão, Hernani Fernandes Barbosa Neto, Thaís Raposo do Amaral, Pinto Chaves, Walter César Silva Oliveira e Roberto Boni. A gente não conseguiu contato com nenhum deles.
They've been kind enough to let me make just a few remarks tonight, and I would like to point out something about this recent debacle that we just had. And I think the fundamental issue for me for the takeaway is the problem that we've had as conservatives and Republicans for the longest time, and I mean for 10, 15, 20 years now, certainly since Ronald Reagan, is that as conservatives we do not believe our own philosophy. Certainly that's true for most Republican politicians, with the notable exception of Ms. Bachmann, who's sitting here tonight, and who we'll hear from later on. But the fact is, the GOP leadership and all of the national level candidates, again with one or two exceptions, are victim of Stockholm Syndrome. The pop culture has beaten them up so severely that they are utterly unwilling to stand for what they claim to believe in publicly. They're, in a way, ashamed of it. Now, I think that Mitt Romney was one of the best men I've ever seen. And I think you could make a compelling case that as an individual man, Mitt Romney may have had the finest moral character of any candidacy for the president, going back to George Washington, a remarkably decent and good man, remarkably, astonishingly. And every week I got to know him better, I liked him better and better and better and better and better. But on some level, one of the problems we have is that on some level, Mitt Romney didn't even believe his own life story. Again, I do not wish to criticize him, I admire him enormously. But I can give you an example of how subtle this is and how pervasive it is when I say that Mitt Romney didn't believe his own message, he didn't believe his own story, forget about the Republican Party story. For example, you would hear the press talk to Mitt Romney and they would ask a question along the lines of, oh, Mr. Romney, you're worth $200 million, how can you possibly connect with the American people? Now, a candidate who actually believes his own party's philosophy would answer that question perhaps like this. Well, first of all, Ms. Crowley, I'm not worth $200 million, I'm worth $250 million. Please do not remove the $50 million from my bank account that I have worked very, very hard to obtain. I might point out to you, first of all, that every single one of the $250 million in my bank account was given to me freely, through no coercion. I'm not the government. I didn't have the power to take it at gunpoint through taxation. It was given to me freely in trade for value that I provided to other people, and people never trade down. No one trades down. So that means that other people in this country felt that I gave them more than $250 million of value in exchange for the $250 million I have in my bank account right now. I'd like to point out also that, as you can see from my tax returns, which I released prior to running for president, that I've paid $60 million in taxes over the course of my lifetime. And I expect to pay quite a bit more than that before I die. So who's really helping the poor people here? Who's actually helping poor, disadvantaged Americans? I've paid $60 million in taxes, which have gone to entitlements, welfare, Social Security benefits, all of these things. Community organizers have paid precisely nothing. They hand out forms, but the forms that people fill out to get benefits are paid for by people like me. And now we get to the root of it, Ms. Crowley, because the real reason I'd like to answer this question directly is, the reason that I have $250 million in my bank account is because I and my associates have generated, we're able to approximate approximately $5 billion of wealth for this society. $5,000 million is about the number that we've generated, which means that the $250 million that I've kept is but a tiny sliver of the total amount of wealth that we've generated for everybody. People all across this country, thousands, if not tens or maybe even hundreds of thousands of people, have gotten paychecks as a result of the work that we do. We haven't just given them handouts. I pay taxes so people can have handouts, but we have paid salaries, and that is people's car payments, and it's their children's college tuitions, it's mortgage payments. All of this is generated by the work that we do, of which I've kept a tiny sliver, which is $250 million. And the final thing I might point out to you is this. I'm running for President of the United States of America. This is the richest country in the history of the world. We have a nation for the first time in history where the primary health concern among poor people is obesity. I may have $250 million in my bank account, but I am telling you now that if I stand next to a person who's flat out broke, who hasn't got a penny, I do not live 250 million times better than that person does, not here in America. They have air conditioning, I have air conditioning. I have more rooms to air condition, but we both have air conditioning. They have a car, I have a few cars. I don't have 250 million cars, and the cars I do have are not 250 million times better than theirs. If I get hit by a bus, I'm taken to the same hospital as the poorest Americans, where I'm given the same treatment by the same doctors as the poorest Americans. I get the same antibiotics and the same medical treatment as the poorest Americans. And so the $250 million that is being used to demonize me as a person who's not an actual being, but rather a vampire, does not mean I live on a different planet than you. On the contrary, what it means is my entire philosophy is based on the idea that everybody should have $250 million, and that's why I'm not ashamed to talk about my bank account. And you can hear it again and again and again and again. Mr. Romney, you have $40 million in your assets overseas, in overseas accounts. Would you like to explain that to the American people? I'd be delighted to explain it to the American people. I'm a money manager. My job is to put my money in the smartest place on earth. So, I have $40 million in overseas accounts, including Switzerland and the Cayman Islands. And rather than talking about whether or not I have money overseas, why don't we talk about why I have my money overseas? Why don't we talk about the fact that the United States of America has the 40th highest corporate tax rate, where we used to be the lowest tax rate in the world, now we're number 40? Why is it that we're not talking about the policies and the procedures that this president and this administration have put in place that make the smart play putting my money overseas? Why don't we talk about changing the rules so that money managers and wealthy people from all over planet Earth are putting their money in America like they used to? Why don't we have that conversation? No. We don't have that conversation because we don't believe our own story. Now, because I get up and talk in front of groups like this every now and then, somebody says, well, Bill, are you going to run for office? I say, no, thank you. I have no interest in it, none whatsoever. And when people say, well, you make an interesting president, I'd say, there's no way that I could be president of the United States. I have no military experience. I've never run a business, for God's sakes. I mean, who could possibly clear that bar? The great thing about President Obama is he's actually left the presidential bar on the floor. Anyone can walk over that bar now. If Barack Obama can be president of the United States, literally anybody in the planet can be president of the United States. But just to tell you, I tell people, listen, I'm temperamentally not suited to be president. And I'm about to prove it to you. Because when I talk about the message and the messenger not matching, when I talk about our politicians in the Republican Party not believing their own message, I'd like to just give you an example of what that might sound like if you actually did in fact believe the way you say you believe. President Whittle, please tell us about the events that occurred around the consulate in Benghazi over the last week. What were you doing when you heard the news, and what did you do after that? My response would be, as president, well, first of all, the only thing that I'm more terrified of than answering that question dishonorably or dishonestly is to tell you the actual truth of what I was doing. And if the First Lady found that I answered that question honestly, I would actually be more afraid of that outcome than the real one. But suffice it to say that the President of the United States, once something is known to the national command structure, the President knows about it within 4 or 5 minutes. The President is never off duty. The President's never in the shower. The President's never away for the afternoon. So 5 or 6 minutes after that attack began on Benghazi, I was fully apprised of the situation. My immediate command was to authorize the in extremis response force that we kept stationed in Italy and have stationed throughout the world. They told me those helicopters take 2 hours to get there. I launched them immediately. They were in the air within 15 minutes. My first actual command was to talk to the Chief of Naval Operations and ask him how far away our nearest carrier battle groups were. He said they were about a 22-minute flight time at the top speed of an F-18. I said I want F-18 Hornets over that consulate now. I want them 300 feet above the ground. I want them supersonic. I want sonic booms over that city between now and when those helicopters arrive. I want our people to know that we're coming, and I want those people to know that we're coming. And if we break every window in Benghazi, they can bill us.